Hey everyone, happy Tuesday, a very cold and snowy Tuesday if you're in central Iowa. We got dumped on with snow last night, but you know what, haters? I'm kind of loving it. I think it's beautiful the way the snow sits in the trees on those days. And I may or may not have listened to Justin Bieber's Mistletoe 3 times in a row before hitting the go live button, but just ignore that. Don't judge. Anyways, we are back for today's Talk Real Estate Tuesday. This is the third episode that I'm hopping on here for. Last week, we talked about 4 reasons why it's still a great time to buy a home, and actually just 4 overall benefits of home ownership in general. What we're going to talk about today is another question people have on their minds beyond just, is it a good time to buy a home right now, but where are home prices going to go in the next year or so? So we're going to look at what experts are saying about home price forecasts. So let's get started. We're going to start off. I'm going to go over some information that I've largely gotten from a Keeping Current Matters article, but then we're going to pull in some other sources as well. So it's not just my opinion, but I'm bringing in kind of some expert opinions and what people are saying out there. So truth be told, right now, experts are kind of divided on what home prices are going to do for 2023. And the fact of the matter is, I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. Home prices may likely depreciate in some markets and will continue to gain ground in other markets. And in others, they'll be kind of stagnant. It really just depends on the conditions of your local market and how heated it got last year. Obviously, everywhere got really heated with low interest rates and low inventory, but some really got more heated than others, especially in some of those really large metropolitan areas. So it also depends on the current inventory levels. Are your inventory levels still really low, or are those starting to rebound? It depends on buyer demand. Right now, that's kind of a little bit fluctuating with the uncertainty of interest rates and also just going into a slower season. So there's lots of factors coming into play that are going to affect each market differently. And like I said, experts are kind of divided on where prices are going to go depending on that. But if we're thinking about just Iowa in general, I will tell you that Iowa and the Midwest, generally speaking, tends to be a lot more stable than some of the other markets. If we're thinking like larger cities, West Coast and areas like that, we're likely not going to see as much fluctuation and massive depreciation as maybe other markets may or may not see. So let's get my nifty little whiteboard out again, and I'm going to write out 5 home price forecasts for you. So the first one, the Mortgage Bankers Association is forecasting for 2023 an appreciation of 2.8%. So they're still forecasting home prices to go up, albeit slower than what they did in the last few years. If we do the Home Price Expectation Survey, they are forecasting 2.6% appreciation. The National Association of Realtors is forecasting 1.2% positive appreciation. Fannie Mae is forecasting negative 1.5%. So a little bit of depreciation, but really not a ton. And then the last one, Zelman, is estimating negative 4% depreciation in the market. So if we take the average of all of those 5 forecasts from those expert realtor sources, that would bring us to 0.2% appreciation for next year, or basically relatively flat. Okay, so nobody is estimating negative 10, negative 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 depreciation. So nobody, at least not in the real estate expert world, is estimating a market crash, like you might be hearing people say. Just that's, maybe you still think that's going to happen, maybe it still will, but these are what the experts are saying, and they're not expecting that. So keep in mind, this is nationally. So nationally, we're looking at probably it just being flat. And keep in mind, like I said, it really depends on your individual market, and the Midwest does tend to be more isolated. So some good news, you might hear that and think, what, it's going to be flat, or oh, it might go down a little bit. Why are you telling me this? This is really negative. Let's talk about the good news about this. So home prices are expected to return to more normal levels of appreciation really quickly. So the latest forecast from Wells Fargo shows that while prices may or may not fall slightly in 2023, they think that prices will recover for ultimate net positive in 2024. And that particular forecast calls for 3% appreciation values going back up in 2024, which is a number more in line with what we talked about last week, that historically home values have appreciated on an annualized average rate of 4.2%. That's going all the way back from 1928 to 2021. 4% on average. And we know throughout that span of several decades that things were not all sunshine and roses. It's cyclical, but the fact of the matter is, if you're holding onto a property for a while, the real estate market does have a shown great track record of positive appreciation. So even if we were stagnant next year, even if we dipped a little bit, it's projected that the year after that, they're going to rebound right back to that 3-4% appreciation. So let's also put this in perspective. So anytime we have home price staying stagnant or declined, it's good to get it and kind of in perspective. Let's look at that comparatively. So nationally, the home list prices rose 40% in just over 2 years' time, from March 2020, when the pandemic lockdowns began, to the peak of this market in June. So 40% over 2 years. If you owned a home, like, you are sitting on equity, it's awesome. So that's not normal though. What did we expect? That we're just going to keep getting 10-20% appreciation on our home year after year, in perpetuity? We all know that wasn't going to happen. Obviously, things were going to have to slow back down. And like we talked about last week, what's happening right now is the market is normalizing. So we got 40% appreciation over the past 2 years. So even if next year we were to see a 5%, 10%, 15% drop, I really don't foresee that happening in the Midwest, but maybe some of those bigger markets like Phoenix, Austin, and those, maybe they might see that sort of a dip. Even if we see that, we just came off of 40%. We're still looking pretty good. And then ride that out to the next year, and you're going to start seeing that 3-4% annualized return again. So it's also important to remember that the real estate market is cyclical. It's not just going up, 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 up. It ebbs and flows. It's cyclical within a year, meaning that in spring and summer, we're going to see it go up a lot, and then it's going to kind of dip down right in about the time of year that we're in right now, because not a lot of people want to move over the holidays, and not a lot of people want to move when there's snow on the ground, which makes it a lot less competitive. If you're a buyer, might be a good time, but that's just how it is. That's how the real estate market has always been. It's also cyclical historically. We know that the real estate market ebbs and flows. So to act as if the sky is falling doesn't really make sense, because we know that this is what the real estate market does. And we know, if we look back historically, that it's going to be okay and it's going to rebound. We don't need to freak out. And then the last thing I'll say is everyone that, at least that I'm reading, the experts I'm reading, the articles that I'm reading, and just kind of my own knowledge of the data, is saying that a housing market extreme crash is really unlikely. I know everyone probably has a friend there that says, oh, I'm going to wait and buy until when the housing market crashes, 2008 style. And it's really unlikely that is going to happen. Real estate experts are not anticipating a repeat of the 2008 market. And there's three, there's three reasons why. First of all, the subprime mortgages that were going to unqualified buyers in those early years have been abolished. Lending standards have really strickened up. And so now we're seeing qualified buyers are the ones who are getting approved for mortgages, and that really lowers the risk of a foreclosure crisis. Secondly, there's more buyers than there are homes for sale. This was the opposite in 2008. Right now we have low supply, lots of buyers. The buyers are maybe kind of settling again because they're worried about interest rates. But as soon as we see a dip in interest rates, it's my guess that we're going to see all this flood of buyers who have been sitting on the sidelines back into the market. So this is not like 2008 when we had oversupply. We have undersupply, and we do still have some demand there. And then last, homeowners right now, what did we just talk about? 40% appreciation over the past 2 years. So homeowners right now are sitting on record levels of equity in their home that they did not have before, meaning that the value of their home minus the value or balance on their mortgage, I should say, is large. It's the largest that it's ever been. So if you have a $200,000 home and your mortgage is $150,000, you have $50,000 equity. Well, say that $200,000 home just rode out the wave of all of that appreciation. Now it's worth $300,000 and your mortgage is $150,000. You have all of that money sitting under that umbrella of your home that you can take out to buy again in the future or just kind of sit on it. You have a lot of net worth. And so, in fact, mortgaged homeowners saw an equity increase of 3.6 trillion annually in the second quarter of 2022, according to CoreLogic. So people are sitting on a lot of equity. So those three reasons are why it's really unlikely that a 2008 style housing market crash is going to happen. So we might all eat our words, but I'm just sharing with you the data and what the experts are saying. So take it or leave it. But I hope that kind of helps to give you some, first of all, just some information on what experts are saying to anticipate about where home prices are headed. And it gives you kind of some data and some things to think about. And I hope, just like last week, that kind of talking through this and putting things in perspective kind of alleviates some of the worries and concerns that you might have, because we know that it's really getting hyped up in the news and the media, but they are in the business of getting clicks. And I am just in the business of sharing the facts and sharing the data, putting it in perspective, so that you know kind of the real deal of what's going on. So anyways, that is that. I hope you guys got some value from that. If you listened in, I'd love if you comment below, #replay, say where you're from. Let me know if you have any questions or anything that you are seeing, any additional insight you want to add. That would be great. And I will see you guys all next week for another Talk Real Estate Tuesdays. Stay warm out there. Bye. And